I was just a regular guy with a 9 to 5, barely making my mortgage payments, yet I'd fallen for a girl I met online. She claimed to be a recent grad, scraping by in a tiny rented room. For 3 years, she was the sweetest, most thoughtful person, calling me hubby in a way that just melted me. Her birthday gifts were things like 999 paper stars she'd folded herself, or a little clay charm she'd molded by hand, because she never wanted me to spend money on her. I never, ever imagined that this sweet, broke girl who asked for virtual hugs every day would stride into our company's annual gala in 4-inch heels and a designer power suit as our new CEO. And the very next second after I texted my buddy, "The new boss is insanely hot," my follow-up text, "My bed isn't huge, but it's just big enough for both of us," was broadcast on the 4K screen during the executive meeting she was leading. The entire room went dead silent. She shot me an icy glare, but at that exact moment, my phone buzzed with a one-word reply from her. Okay. My life, which should have ended from social ruin, instead took a sharp turn. I found myself cornered at my desk by her parents, publicly claimed when she linked her arm through mine, and even pushed towards engagement by the chairman and his wife. It all started because she pinned me against the wall in the stairwell that day, her eyes red as she cried out, "Baby, how much longer are you going to hide from me?" For 3 years, I believed the girl I was dating online was a gentle soul, a sweet angel who spoke in the softest of tones. I never in my wildest dreams imagined she was actually the ice-cold, formidable CEO who held my entire professional future in the palm of her hand. And to make matters infinitely worse, I had just sent her a message that read, "My bed isn't big, but it's just big enough for the two of us." The next second, that ridiculously flirty message was projected, verbatim and in crystal clear detail, onto the 4K screen in the executive conference room. The entire room fell terrifyingly silent. It was as if someone had hit the delete key on the very air we were breathing. My entire life felt like it had been erased with a single click. Then my phone buzzed. She had replied with a single word, "Okay." I just stood there, completely frozen. And just like that, the first, absurdly sweet chapter of a romance that began with my own social annihilation had quietly begun. It was the day of our company's anniversary party. The new CEO was making her first official appearance in front of the entire staff. I discreetly lifted my phone to snap a covert picture of the new boss. I was planning to send it to my friend so he could see what a CEO who was on a whole other level of gorgeous looked like. But the moment I hit the shutter, she caught me, her expression turning to ice. She shot me a look that could cut glass and scolded me in a chillingly cold tone. As an employee, your focus should be on company business, not whatever nonsense you're up to. My face instantly flushed crimson. I was so embarrassed I wanted the ground to swallow me whole, to just disappear right then and there, to try and salvage some shred of dignity. As soon as the party ended, I steeled myself and headed straight for the CEO's office, determined to explain myself. The moment the door opened, my eyes landed on a small clay figurine sitting on her desk. I froze completely. Wasn't that the same figurine I had made by hand just a few days ago, the one I sent to my online girlfriend for her birthday? On its base, my initials were clearly carved. When the reality of it finally hit me, a chill shot down my spine and my scalp went numb. The new CEO was none other than my sweet and thoughtful online girlfriend, Olivia. My online girlfriend and I had been together for 3 years. After confirming that my new boss was, in fact, the woman I'd never met in person, I completely panicked and blurted out the first thing that came to mind. This little clay figurine was handmade for me by my boyfriend. Olivia reached out, gently stroking the figurine's head. A rare flicker of softness crossed her eyes, and the hint of a smile touched her lips before she forcibly stamped it out. A second later, her expression hardened. "What's it to you?" she snapped, her tone sharp. "Stop prying into things that don't concern you. What is it you wanted?" I awkwardly rubbed my nose, reluctantly tearing my eyes away from the little figurine. "Miss Hayes, about taking your picture earlier, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. It's just, you look so much like my girlfriend, I couldn't help myself." I swear, it was an excuse I just made up, but under the circumstances, it was also 100% true. But Olivia clearly didn't believe a word of it. She just let out a cold scoff. Couldn't you come up with a better excuse? With that pathetic look on your face, what girl would be blind enough to be interested in you? My expression soured immediately. To think this was the terrible first impression I'd made on her. I wanted to find a friend who'd egg me on to check out the new hot boss and strangle him. At the same time, I was furious with Olivia. Online, she was always so sweet and affectionate, clinging to my every word. Who would have thought that in person, she'd be so sharp-tongued and impossible to deal with? Besides, how does a girl who claims to be a recent grad, just scraping by in a big city like San Francisco, suddenly transform into a high-powered, take-no-prisoner CEO? I walked out of her office with my head spinning, completely unable to process what had just happened. I pulled out my phone and sent Olivia a cute little spanking sticker on iMessage. She replied almost instantly. "What's wrong, baby? Who upset you?" Her office door hadn't quite shut, and through the crack, I could see her staring at her phone, a brilliant smile spreading across her face. It was a look of pure, sweet happiness. She looked like a completely different person from the impenetrable ice queen who had just been staring me down moments before. Gritting my teeth, I quickly typed back, "I just got chewed out by my boss." She said that no girl would ever be interested in a guy like me. That clearly struck a nerve. My phone immediately began vibrating nonstop as messages flooded in, one after another. I shot a guilty glance towards the crack in her door, terrified she'd see me, and beat a hasty retreat to the restroom before daring to reply. In the chat, Olivia was already jumping to my defense. "How could she say that about my baby? That's horrible. You're the best man in the whole world. Your boss must be blind, honey. Just wait until we finally meet in a few days. I won't let anyone push you around ever again. I promise." As if she wasn't the only person in this entire company who had ever given me a hard time. I've been at this company for almost 2 years, and my online girlfriend of 3 years suddenly turns out to be my boss. And now, the one scolding me the harshest is my very own girlfriend. Who was I supposed to complain to about this situation? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I decided right then and there to postpone our meeting just to spite her. "I've been really busy lately," I typed. "I don't think I'll have time to meet up this month." "What? No, baby. I've been looking forward to meeting you for so long. How can you put it off?" She immediately started bombarding me with messages, a dozen crying emojis flooding my screen. I was still reeling from the girlfriend of 3 years as my boss soap opera I'd found myself in, and my head was a mess. I just swiped the chat window closed, quit the app, and decided to ignore her for a while. I finally got some peace, but it came at the expense of the entire company. Olivia was in a foul mood all day. Every manager who went into her office for a meeting came out looking like they'd just weathered a storm. First, the sales team got a brutal dressing down. Then it was finance's turn. She called them in one by one and tore them to shreds. Before long, that fire spread to my department. Over one minuscule oversight in a project, Olivia hauled my entire team into her office for a public shaming. She was ruthless, her words hitting their mark like a spray of bullets. My colleagues were so crushed by her presence that they barely dared to breathe, every single one of them staring fixedly at the floor. This woman was a completely different species from the soft, sweet girl I knew online. She was one hell of an actress. I couldn't help muttering under my breath, almost saying what I was really thinking out loud. "Lucas," she said, "you seem to have a problem with me." I had to hand it to her. Her powers of observation were dangerously sharp. She hadn't missed even that tiny, subtle movement. Olivia frowned, her gaze piercing and intense. The sheer force of her authority was so overwhelming it made me hold my breath. I quickly shook my head. "Not all, Miss Hayes. I appreciate the feedback and will be sure to improve." She let out a cold snort, arching an eyebrow as she looked me over. "You've got a quick tongue. With a mouth that quick, your proposal skills must be just as sharp. In that case, you can redo the entire proposal yourself. I want a new version on my desk by the end of the day tomorrow." All of my colleagues turned to look at me in unison, their eyes filled with a universal look of "good luck, man. You're going to need it." My brain just short-circuited. In my head, I was calling her every name in the book. It was nearly quitting time, and she wanted me to rewrite the entire project plan from scratch by myself and have it done by tomorrow evening. Wasn't that just a blatant attempt to force me into an all-nighter? Fine, Olivia. If you wanted to make my life hell out in the open, then don't blame me for playing games behind your back. I stomped back to my desk, fuming, and was about to get to work when my phone screen lit up. It was a message from Olivia. Baby, please don't ignore me. I miss you so much. I won't pressure you about meeting up anymore. We could just do it whenever you have time, okay? Thinking about her ball, punish everyone, tantrum today, I decided to take one for the team so my colleagues wouldn't have to suffer anymore. I gritted my teeth and decided to be the bigger person. After a few seconds of hesitation, I replied, "All right, I'll think about it." She must have been relieved that I finally answered, because messages started pouring in. "Oh, that's wonderful, baby." You finally replied. "Baby, tomorrow is your birthday. Even if we can't meet, I have to send you your gift. You promised you'd let me, so no takebacks." She finished it off with a cute sticker of Storm of Kisses. In our 3 years of dating online, I had never once given Olivia my real address. She'd asked for it a few times, wanting to send me things, but I always turned her down. I was worried she'd think I was just some scumbag trying to get presents out of her. However, every year on her birthday, I would usually send Olivia some little handmade gift to show I was thinking of her. It wasn't because I was cheap. I just didn't want to complicate what felt like a pure and simple relationship. Besides, she always said she was a recent grad barely getting by in a major city, that money was always tight. How could I accept expensive gifts from her and add to her financial burden? But now that I knew she was a CEO, all those concerns vanished. So, for the sake of giving my colleagues a less hellish work environment, I made a small sacrifice and sent her my address. I only sent the address for the central mailroom of my apartment complex, though. The place is huge. There was no way she could track me down from that alone. That evening, a same-day delivery package arrived. It was my birthday gift from Olivia. I opened the elegant box to find a glass jar filled to the brim with paper stars, a mechanical watch that was understated but clearly high quality, and a handwritten letter. The stationery carried a faint, familiar scent of perfume, the same one Olivia wore. Her handwriting was just like her, elegant and sharp, with a touch of arrogance. Every letter seemed to overflow with her feelings for me. It was only a few short sentences, but it made my heart pound in my chest. Olivia and I met 5 years ago. She had just gone through a nasty breakup with her first love. One night, she got completely wasted and posted an incredibly bleak, anonymous confession on her Instagram story. I never used that feature, but for some reason, I clicked on it that day. I ended up being the only person who saw her drunken, heartbroken post. Seeing how much pain she was in, I felt for her and sent a long, comforting reply. And just like that, we connected. After we followed each other on Instagram, we started talking back and forth and ended up chatting for over a year. It was only after all that time that we made it official and started dating online. Even though it was an online relationship, I still had my principles. We could make it official, change our relationship statuses, and even use matching profile pictures. But there were rules. No full-face photos, no video calls, and no meeting in person. Olivia wasn't happy about it at first, but I was firm, and eventually she gave in and agreed to my terms. And so we spent the next 3 years in that strange, disembodied state, knowing each other intimately without ever having seen each other's faces. 3 years isn't a lifetime, but it isn't short either. The emotional investment we'd made couldn't be measured in time alone. I picked up my phone and sent Olivia a thank you message. "I got the gift. I love it. Thank you." She replied almost immediately. "I'm so glad you like it, baby. I folded every one of those stars myself. There are 999 for forever. Happy birthday, baby. Oh, and the little charm inside, I made that by hand. Please keep it with you always, okay?" A charm. I sifted through the stars in the jar again, and, sure enough, I found a small, handmade clay charm at the bottom. Since she had made it for me, I did as she asked and clipped it onto my everyday bag. A little while later, another message came through. "Baby, are you still mad at me? You haven't called me baby or honey lately." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. When we first got together, calling her baby and honey came so easily. But ever since I found out she was my boss, those cloyingly sweet nicknames felt awkward and impossible to say. I stared at the screen, trying to hype myself up, giving myself a mental pep talk. Finally, I forced myself to type the words, "My dearest baby." Then, gritting my teeth, I hit send. The effect that simple term of endearment had on Olivia was immediately obvious the very next morning. She did something that left me completely floored. For the first time ever, Olivia bought coffee for the entire company. Everyone's opinion of her shot through the roof. Meanwhile, the cause of all this, was miserable. I spent the entire day hunched over my desk, wrestling with that proposal, wanting to tear my hair out. I had to work 3 hours of overtime just to get it finished. By the time I got home, I was so drained I felt completely hollowed out. I collapsed into bed and was out cold the second my head hit the pillow, completely oblivious to my phone vibrating off the hook. The next morning, I was jolted awake by a frantic knocking at my door. I stumbled to the door to find my building's super, drenched in sweat, holding a massive stack of packages with even more piled at his feet. "What is all this?" I asked, completely bewildered. The super managed a strained smile. "Lucas, I think these are all for you. About 20 packages showed up last night. They all look pretty expensive, and they were overflowing from the mailroom, so I brought them up for you." I looked down, and my God, they were all same-day deliveries from Olivia. A bottle of 1982 Chateau Lafite Rothschild, a limited edition single malt scotch, a whole gift set of premium ginseng. Has she lost her mind? The shipping labels didn't have my apartment number, just my name. Luckily, the super recognized my name from previous deliveries. I thanked him profusely, and as soon as he was gone, I grabbed my phone. I had been so exhausted last night, I'd slept like the dead. I checked my phone and saw nearly 100 missed messages from Olivia. Because she couldn't reach me, she had started panic sending me a flood of packages. I quickly messaged her back an explanation. My boss had me rushing to finish a proposal last night. I worked super late and passed out the second I got home. I didn't even hear my phone. That was why I hadn't seen any of her messages. After I finally managed to calm her down, she promised she'd stop sending things. That night, my manager tapped me to join a client dinner. This project was a huge deal for the company's second-half performance, so Olivia was taking a personal interest and decided to attend the dinner herself. The client representative was a notoriously heavy drinker. In past negotiations, he'd managed to drink several of our team members under the table. This time, seeing a beautiful woman like Olivia, he was even more enthusiastic, pushing drink after drink on her. "Miss Hayes, you have to have a drink with us," he slurred. "If you don't, you're disrespecting me. And that's not a good way to start a business deal, is it?" Olivia's expression instantly darkened. It was clear she was losing her patience, but she was trying to remain professional and hold back her anger. After a moment's hesitation, she reached for the glass. I suddenly remembered the message she'd sent me that morning, saying she was on her period and having terrible cramps. On pure reflex, I shot to my feet and took the glass from her hand. "You can't drink tonight." The private dining room went completely silent. Every single pair of eyes turned to me. Olivia looked startled, staring at me, stunned. Maybe it was the heat in the room, or maybe it was something else, but a faint blush crept onto her cheeks. Under the dim lighting, that blush was almost distractingly beautiful. Realizing I'd overstepped, I awkwardly sat back down, forcing a weak smile as if nothing had happened. Then I discreetly pulled out my phone and quickly sent her a text. "Baby, it's that time of the month. Remember, no cold foods and no alcohol." Olivia's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it almost instantly. As she read the message, the corners of her mouth turned up into a smile she couldn't quite contain. In that moment, a strange warmth spread through my own chest. "Yes, I'll listen to my baby," she murmured in reply. After that, no matter how the client tried to coax her or offer toasts, Olivia acted as if she couldn't hear him. She didn't touch her glass again. Naturally, the duty of running interference fell to me. I steeled myself and drank in her place, downing quite a bit before I realized it. By the time the dinner was over, I was unsteady on my feet, swaying a little as I followed Olivia out of the restaurant. Just then, A waiter carrying a bowl of scalding soup was heading right for her, about to crash into her. No matter what else was going on, she was still the girl I'd been with for 3 years. Seeing her in danger, I didn't even have time to think. I instinctively lunged forward and yanked her out of the way, toward me. Her light perfume filled my senses as her entire body slammed into my chest. My shoulder crashed hard into the corner of a nearby table, and the pain made my vision swim. A second later, I felt a soft, warm pressure against my cheek. Just like that, completely out of the blue, Olivia had kissed me. She seemed stunned herself, and she quickly pulled away. Thank you, she stammered. Are you okay? I winced, using the table to steady myself as I stood up. I'm fine, I said, shaking my head. I'll live. Always trying to act tough, she muttered under her breath. But even as she tried to act nonchalant, her ears had turned a telltale shade of crimson. She started to move toward me to help, but then she saw my bag on the floor and froze. I followed her gaze, and my heart sank. At some point, the zipper on my bag had come undone, revealing the little handmade charm inside, the very one she had made and asked me to keep with me always. What's that? She asked, her eyes fixed on the charm as she reached for my bag. I moved faster, snatching the bag off the floor and blocking her view. It's nothing. Just some cheap little keychain I picked up somewhere. It's not worth anything. Olivia's expression fell instantly. She gave me a strange, unreadable look, then turned without a word and stalked away. By the time I realized what a stupid thing I'd said, it was too late. I could have kicked myself. Sure enough, a few moments later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Olivia. Baby, does the charm I made for you look cheap? Do you not like it? She followed it with a crying emoji. If I'd known the night was going to be this much of a disaster, I never would have come to this dinner in the first place. Now I'd really done it. I had shot myself in the foot, and it hurt like hell. I had no choice but to start doing damage control. Of course not. It's special because you made it. It's one of a kind. I absolutely love it. I immediately followed up with a series of hugging and kissing emojis. She finally seemed to be calming down. Olivia rarely wore makeup, not even lipstick. But the memory of that soft, light, fragrant touch was still vivid on my cheek. I couldn't resist touching the spot where she had kissed me, savoring it for a moment before quickly dropping my hand. Any more, and it would just be creepy. Besides, there would be plenty of chances later. I had already decided that as soon as I could work up the nerve, I would find the right time to tell her everything. We had to meet eventually. I just had a nagging feeling that Olivia was already starting to suspect something, but I still had to go to work. From that day on, I started going out of my way to avoid her. I avoided any and all contact with her. But the strange thing was, the more I tried to avoid her, the more often she seemed to be around. And every time she walked past my desk, she would give me this searching look, studying me intently. It was making me a nervous wreck. The guy in the cubicle next to me finally couldn't take it anymore and leaned over. "Lucas," he whispered, "did you do something to piss off Miss Hayes? I feel like she's been staring at you a lot lately." I snuck a glance toward her office and mumbled, "Of course not." My colleague shot me a knowing grin. "Then she must be into you," he said in a stage whisper. "Hey, when you hit the big time, don't forget about us little guys." If that kind of rumor started spreading, it could damage Olivia's reputation, and I couldn't have that. I couldn't just let him run his mouth. So I casually pulled out my phone and brought up a picture of the watch Olivia had sent me. "Dude, stop talking nonsense," I said. "I have a girlfriend. See this?" It was a birthday present from her last week. I was just trying to shut down his me and the boss fan fiction. I was completely unprepared for his reaction to the photo. "Holy crap, your girlfriend is loaded? Isn't that a limited edition Richard Mille? That thing's worth over $1 million. Over $1 million. I was completely floored. I don't follow luxury brands, so I knew the watch was nice, but I never in a million years would have guessed it cost that much. Hearing him say that nearly sent my entire worldview into a system reboot. My colleague's curiosity was piqued, and he started firing off a string of questions. I quickly clutched my stomach, faking a cramp. Upset stomach, I mumbled, and made a break for the restroom. I was only halfway there when I saw him. A man I didn't recognize was walking straight toward Olivia's office. The door was ajar, and from my angle, I could see right inside. The man was smiling like an old friend, leaning in uncomfortably close to Olivia. "Olivia," he said, "I had no choice when I broke up with you back then. You can't blame me. I heard you were a wreck, that you cried for days. You came back to Chicago for me, didn't you? I know you're not over me. Let's get back together, okay? I'll treat you right this time, I promise." Some guys just have a special talent for making you despise them the second they open their mouths. The moment Olivia saw him, her expression turned to ice. "You haven't changed a bit, Leo," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "All these years, and you're still the same." So that was him. The scumbag ex-boyfriend Olivia had told me about. She used to talk about him with such disappointment in her voice. Once we started dating, she never brought him up again. Why was he suddenly back in the picture? But hearing her razor-sharp comeback, the fists I had unknowingly clenched began to relax. There were too many people walking by for me to just stand there eavesdropping. When the coast was clear, I pretended to be just passing through and continued on to the restroom. During my lunch break, I overheard more gossip in the break room. "I'm telling you, a guy like Mr. Vance is the only one who's actually in Miss Hayes' league. Totally. He's handsome, comes from a powerful family. They're a perfect match. Did you see the way he was looking at her? I bet they'll be back together in no time." My grip on my plastic fork tightened until I nearly snapped it in two. A heavy, suffocating feeling settled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. I was just a regular guy from a middle-class family. My entire family had scrimped and saved for years just to pull together the down payment on my small condo. Every month was a struggle just to make my mortgage and car payments. The chasm between our lives suddenly felt immense, and a crippling sense of inadequacy washed over me. I had to face it. Olivia and I were from two completely different worlds. That night, I tossed and turned, my thoughts a tangled mess. Finally, I made a decision. I was going to have to face this eventually, so it was better just rip the Band-Aid off now. With the huge gap between our families, it was better for me to end it myself than to wait for her family to step in and tear us apart. At least this way, I could walk away with some dignity. I held my phone, typing and deleting the breakup text over and over for half an hour. Finally, with a tremor in my hand, I hit send. "I've been thinking a lot, and I just don't think we're right for each other. I don't want to waste any more of your time. Let's break up." It had been 3 years. The moment I sent the message, my chest seized up with a dull, aching pain. So this is what a breakup felt like. It felt like absolute hell. Since I'd already done it, I went all in. I packed up the $1 million watch, the rare whiskey, and every other expensive gift she'd sent me, and mailed them all back. It wasn't long before my phone started vibrating uncontrollably. I glanced at the screen. It was flooded with messages from Olivia, each one begging me to reconsider. I didn't dare read them. I was afraid if I did, my resolve would crumble. So I just deleted her number, making it a clean break. The next day at lunch, I heard some colleagues whispering. I was just walking by her office, and I swear I saw Miss Hayes crying. My heart clenched. I just poked at my food, unable to eat. My mind was racing. Had I been too harsh? Just then, the same gossipy colleague from yesterday sidled up to me, eager to continue our conversation. "All right, Lucas, out with it. Show me a picture of this rich girlfriend who buys you Richard Mille watches. I need to see what my future dream girl looks like." I was in no mood for his nonsense. "We broke up," I said flatly. The words had barely left my lips when a familiar voice spoke from behind me. "What watch?" I looked up and my eyes met Olivia's. They were red-rimmed, and my heart leaped into my throat. Before I could even open my mouth to explain, my colleague jumped in. It was Lucas's birthday this month, and his rich girlfriend got him a Richard Mille, a limited edition one, worth over $1 million. I forced a weak laugh, trying to deflect. "He's just kidding. I was messing with him, and he actually believed it." My colleague clearly wanted to argue, but I grabbed his arm and physically dragged him away. But even as we walked away, I could feel a searing gaze boring into my back. To my relief, Olivia didn't follow us. I let out a small sigh. It looked like I needed to find a better way to throw her off the scent for good. But before I could even come up with a plan, a new problem walked through the door. In the latest round of new hires, by some bizarre twist of fate, my cousin Jessica ended up working at my company. She's the designated gossip of our family, and she immediately took up the mission my mother had given her, to keep a close eye on her perpetually single older cousin and push me toward marriage. For the sake of my own sanity, I told her the whole 3-year online relationship story just to get her off my back. An online relationship? For 3 years? She scoffed. Lucas, do you think I'm an idiot? You could have come up with a better lie than that. She rolled her eyes, her expression screaming. That excuse is so lame, I'm embarrassed for you. I'm not buying it unless you show me proof. And if you don't blame me for nagging you about it nonstop. She was giving me a massive headache. Finally, I gave in and gestured toward Olivia's office. That's her, I said. My girlfriend of 3 years. You mean, Miss Hayes? Jessica's voice shot up an octave, and she stared at me as if I'd just been struck by lightning. She dragged me aside and proceeded to interrogate me, refusing to let up until she had every last detail. After I finished, she patted me on the shoulder. Don't worry, Lucas. I'm on it. I'll help you win her back. Give me a break. If I wasn't such a coward, if I'd just made a move, she'd already be mine. I didn't need her meddling. I already broke up with her, I said, and she still has no idea who I am. So don't do anything and don't cause trouble. I warned her, my expression grim, terrified she was going to pull some stunt behind my back. Jessica just raised an eyebrow, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. Don't worry, she said. You can count on me. Trust her? Not a chance. There was nothing trustworthy about her. And sure enough, the very next day, my damn cousin started making trouble. The company was hosting a welcome happy hour for the new hires. I figured someone like Olivia wouldn't bother showing up for something so minor. So I went, figuring at the very least I could score some free drinks and appetizers. But I had barely sat down when the door to our private room swung open, and in walked Olivia herself, poised and confident in her heels. I instinctively turned away, pretending to be deep in conversation with a coworker, my face a mask of guilt. Just then, Jessica sidled up to me and linked her arm through mine affectionately. Hey, cousin, she said loudly. What's up? Your mom's been trying to call you. When you didn't pick up, she called me. I glanced down at my phone, and sure enough, I had several missed calls. Since it was a team event, and I was at the same table as Olivia, I was paranoid my mom would send some random, weird text that would blow my cover. To avoid any drama, I'd put my phone on silent, which is why I'd missed all her calls. I quickly stood up, made an excuse to leave the room, and called my mom back. I had just hung up and was about to head back inside when I realized someone was standing behind me. It was Olivia. That girl from earlier, she began. What's your relationship with her? Why did she call you her cousin? Her voice was low, as if she were trying to conceal some deeper emotion, but I could hear a trace of hurt in it. I paused for a second before realizing she meant Jessica. Miss Hayes, she's my cousin, I answered honestly. She's one of the new interns. That little brat. She must have been laying it on thick on purpose, just to stir up drama. It was my own fault for being so careless and falling right in her trap. I had never told anyone at work that Jessica was my cousin, specifically to avoid this kind of mess. But since Olivia had asked me directly, hiding it would only make things look worse. I had to tell her the truth. After I explained, her tense expression visibly softened. She gave a slight nod and turned to go back inside. I thought it was a little strange. Just then, a notification popped up on my phone. I tapped on it. It was a status update she'd just posted. The string of crying emojis she'd had up for the last day had been replaced by a beaming sun. It was so weird. Her moods had been all over the place lately. Midway through the dinner, someone suggested we liven things up. Someone called out to Olivia, Miss Hayes, are you single? Olivia took a slow sip of water, then calmly shook her head. No, she said. I have a boyfriend. We've been together for 3 years. The table erupted in surprised murmurs, everyone exchanging shocked glances. What? Miss Hayes has a boyfriend. You have to bring him out so we can meet him. We have to see the kind of guy who could land a goddess like you. Yeah, you have to. A few of the more outspoken colleagues chimed in. I couldn't shake the feeling that as she spoke, her eyes kept drifting in my direction. It was making me incredibly anxious. Had she already figured something out? I picked up my water glass to hide my nerves, but I'd barely taken a sip when Jessica gave me a sharp pinch under the table. I nearly yelped in pain. The entire table turned to look at me. I swallowed my anger and shot a death glare at the instigator. Yeah, definitely, she chirped. You have to bring him so we can all meet him. Olivia glanced at me, a hint of a smile playing on her lips as she raised an eyebrow. There was a distinctly amused glint in her beautiful eyes. All right, she said coolly. I'll bring him to meet all of you soon. I felt too guilty to meet her gaze, so I just stared at my plate and mumbled, yeah, that's great. Later, when I glanced up, my eyes met hers. I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, but I thought I saw a flicker of an unreadable, knowing smile in her eyes. But when I tried to get a better look, it was gone, like a ripple on the water's surface. After a few more drinks, my colleagues got bolder and started going around the table, interrogating everyone about their relationship status. When it was your turn, you had to spill the beans. My heart was pounding my chest, but I knew I couldn't avoid it. Soon, all eyes were on me. Lucas, didn't you just say you broke up with that rich girlfriend of yours? One of my colleagues piped up. I should set you up with my cousin. She's 24, gorgeous, legs for days, a total catch. What do you think? I answered distractedly. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. The next second, I heard a loud slam. Olivia had slammed her hand on the table and shot to her feet, her eyes fixed on me. Lucas, outside. I need to talk to you. I swallowed hard. Every fiber of my being screamed no, but my legs seemed to have a mind of their own and followed her out of the room. The moment we stepped into the stairwell, Olivia shoved me against the wall. Her voice was a mixture of frustration and a raw, suppressed hurt. Lucas, if I hadn't dragged you out here, were you just going to keep avoiding me forever? You had no intention of ever coming clean, did you? I just stared down at her, completely dumbfounded. She was so close I could see every fleck of light in her eyes. They were so bright and clear, like they held the entire night sky. They were breathtaking. My heart started hammering in my chest, and my breath hitched. I quickly looked away, trying my best to keep my voice steady. Miss Hayes, what are you talking about? I don't understand. She pouted, her eyes full of hurt, and leaned in even closer. Her breath was a warm, tingling sensation on my neck, sending a jolt through my nerves that threw my heartbeat completely out of whack. After all this, you're still not going to admit it? Baby, did I do something wrong? You're mad at me, aren't you? Before she could even finish, tears began to fall. She cried so silently, and it was so beautiful it made my heart ache. My chest tightened, and I was torn. If I wasn't so afraid of scaring her, I would have pulled her into my arms and held her right then and there. After a moment of hesitation, I sighed in defeat. Don't cry. The reason I've been quiet is because I've been wondering if we can really keep doing this. She looked up at me, her eyes red and swimming with tears. If we can keep doing this? What are you trying to say? Our backgrounds are just too different. We're not in the same league. We're from two completely different worlds. Even if you don't care, your family would never accept me, rather than be torn apart by them down the line. She suddenly raised a warm hand and pressed it against my mouth, silencing me. The instant our skin made contact, we both flinched, pulling back as if we'd gotten an electric shock. But in that fleeting second, I could feel how soft and hot her hand was, and that it was trembling slightly. The atmosphere between us shifted instantly. When I looked at her again, the hurt in her eyes had been replaced by a quiet determination. If that's what you're worried about, then don't be. My parents will love you. At first, I didn't believe a word of it. But then, the very next day, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, the chairman and his wife, cornered me at my desk. And I finally understood what she really meant by they'll love you. You must be our Olivia's boyfriend, Mrs. Hayes beamed. My goodness, you're just as handsome and charming as she said. She smiled warmly, placing a gift box on my desk. Her tone was unbelievably enthusiastic. This is all so rushed, but please accept this little something. We'll have to do something proper to celebrate later. We'll have a proper, formal get-together when you two get engaged. I shot up from my chair, so nervous I was tongue-tied. Mrs. Hayes, sir. After a moment of stammering, I finally managed a complete sentence. Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Hayes. It's nice to meet you. Mrs. Hayes couldn't help but laugh. She had the same beautiful eyes as Olivia, and she looked at me with the kind of warmth you'd reserve for a son. The chairman, however, stood by with a stern, serious expression. His presence was so commanding that I instinctively straightened my spine. "Your name is Lucas, correct?" he asked suddenly. I straightened up even more. "Yes, Mr. Chairman." I'd been at the company for over 2 years and had seen him from a distance a few times, but this was the first time I'd ever met him face to face, especially under these circumstances. To be honest, I was terrified. "Very good," he said. "Come to the house this weekend." I let out the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and forced myself to reply, "Okay." The second they were gone, the entire office erupted. The colleague who was always teasing me about my rich girlfriend was completely stunned. "Holy crap, Lucas! You kept that quiet. I knew something was up with you and Miss Hayes, and you kept denying it." The rest of my co-workers, recovering from their shock, swarmed my desk, hungry for gossip. I had no idea what to say. My mind was a complete blank. Just then, Olivia emerged from her office. She walked confidently over to me and, in front of the entire office, casually linked her arm through mine. "Allow me to properly introduce you all," she announced. "This is my boyfriend, Lucas." And everyone around me gasped in unison. My heart was pounding against my ribs. Just like that, so openly and decisively, she had announced our relationship to the entire world. Olivia's hand slid down to intertwine her fingers with mine. She looked up at me, her smile as bright as the sun. "Now the whole company knows you're my boyfriend," she said. "Let's see you try to run away now." I couldn't help but smile back, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "I wasn't planning on running," I said. "Not ever." That weekend was New Year's Eve. I brought the gifts I'd picked out and went with Olivia to her parents' house. The Hayes' 3-story mansion was undeniably luxurious, but it had a surprisingly warm, homey feeling to it. It wasn't cold or sterile at all. Her parents were almost overly enthusiastic, acting as if they wanted to marry me off to their daughter the very next day. It was so intense I could barely keep up. After dinner, Olivia and I went for a walk along the riverfront, hand in hand. After a while, I couldn't help but ask, "Don't you think your parents are being just a little too enthusiastic?" Olivia finally burst out laughing, bending over with the force of it. "After Leo and I broke up," she explained, "I was a complete wreck, borderline depressed. My parents were so worried they started setting me up on blind dates constantly. I got so fed up that I told them I was never getting married, that I was going to be alone for the rest of my life." I stood there stunned. No wonder they were so terrified their precious daughter would actually end up alone forever. So the second they heard she had a boyfriend, they latched on like he was a lifeline, practically shoving her at me to finally get her settled. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Somehow, I had been inexplicably absorbed into this wealthy family. The Riverwalk was bustling with people, the city lights glittering against the night sky. In the middle of it all, Olivia leaned close and whispered in my ear, "Baby, we can finally spend New Year's Eve together." The warm puff of her breath against my ear sent a shiver down my spine, making my heart flutter. "Has anyone ever told you not to do that?" I asked, my voice a little rough. I leaned down, my lips close to her ear. "A girl shouldn't just go around whispering in a man's ear." "Why not?" Olivia asked, tilting her head with a look of pure innocence. Her big, bright eyes blinked up at me, as if she were waiting for a real answer. In that moment, I couldn't hold back the feeling welling up inside me any longer. I leaned down and kissed her, because, I murmured against her lips, "It makes me want to kiss you." Sometimes, the greatest distance between two people isn't class or circumstance, but the stories we tell ourselves about our own worth. We build entire fortresses out of the fear that we are not enough, only to find that the person on the other side was never trying to breach our walls, but simply waiting for us to lower the drawbridge. This story is a gentle nudge, a reminder that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a key. The love you think you're unworthy of might just be the one that has been quietly, patiently waiting for you to see yourself through their eyes. True connection doesn't ask you to be more, it asks you to be you. And perhaps the greatest risk isn't in loving someone from a different world, but in never finding out if they were willing to build a new one with you.